So right here is where I knew I was completely I actually didn't know it was on fire at this point. You may not know this, but when you're driving, you're very focused on like what's in front of you. You're even looking maybe 3 turns down the track. When this happened, I had no idea. It backfired all the time, shot flames. I'd see, fire in my peripherals or in the mirror, anything like that, and it's just pretty standard stuff. My car is currently on fire and I'm drifting and I have no idea. So I continue to go. At this point, still have no idea what's going on. Funny story. This is my dad came out and he brought his best friend, Steven Hawkschuler with. Steven's a back surgeon, don't know how that's relevant. Really nice guy, he's like a mentor of mine. It's his first time ever riding a race car, ever riding in a drift car, anything like that. And my dad was like, yeah, hop in, it's gonna be awesome. You're gonna have such a great time. And I was like, yeah, jump on in. Strap up. So he was in the car during this. I don't know if he had any idea we were on fire either. And so he's just chilling, riding, I'm cruising, we're having a good time. Still no idea the car's on fire. Also, one comment, I have no idea why the headlights turned off. There's a bunch of wires back there and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, the car was still operating at this point and we had no idea. And as you can see here now, my bumper's coming off because it's basically melting. We do have a firewall behind the back seats. My window's like really short. If you guys can see, it actually looks like the window is on fire. I don't think it was. There's no burn marks on there, but it was just a huge fireball basically right behind the firewall. So we still have no idea at this point, and we're just cruising, we're ripping, having a good time. Dr. Hawkschuler's chilling in the passenger seat. Everything's good. So this is one of the local guys, one of my good friends. He is flipping out. I don't know why he's yelling at me. I can't hear him. Maybe he thought through osmosis I'd hear, "Stop driving, son." But no, I didn't hear him. So, but glad to have that support.
You're done. Holy sh**.
First of all, I did notice at this point we were on fire. That's why I stopped drifting. The car was still functioning completely fine, which is pretty ridiculous actually. So at this point, I started slowing down. I was like, oh my God, we're on fire. I think we got an issue. So then I freaking look back and I'm like, oh my God, we're on fire. So I slow down. At this point, the fire department was already, or not fire department, but just like the fire safety personnel, they were probably already on their way. So at the track, we're down, this is West Course at Wild Horse Pass. And they're usually posted up on the skid pad because they're running basically 2 tracks at the same time. And so they basically have to run down, from the skid pad, go on track and come get to us. So they were probably on their way, like way before this. But yeah, about the same time, they appear into the shot. I noticed we're on fire. I'm like, this isn't good, but I kept my cool. I don't know how. I'd only been driving for like a year and a half, and I was like, everything's good.
He got the fire department after him.
So basically, once they were pulling up behind me, I had got myself to a stop. We had a fire suppression system, so I pulled that thing. That actually put like, I think almost all the fire out. And I look over at Steven, Dr. Hawkschuler, he's no idea what's going on. He doesn't even know how to get his belt off. Like, he would have been completely been going down with the car. So I look at him, I just reach over, unclip his belt. I'm like, get out, get away from the car. I unclip my belt, jump out. At this point, it's pretty much fire's kind of going out. They get the fire extinguishers out, kind of put it out, but yeah, it was insane. Right there is a pretty good shot. So if you can kind of see somewhere in this area, the fuel cell is right there. And the fire was actually on top of the fuel cell, which is insanity. Like, thank God at that point we did have a legitimate fuel cell and not just a regular old stock gas tank, because they're built to withstand things like this. I don't think they're built to withstand a fire on top of them, but That basically saved the car from exploding, which would have been a cool video, but I would be dead, so this video wouldn't exist, and there'd be no YouTube channel, so that would suck. So I'm really happy that didn't happen. But essentially, the fire was on top of the fuel cell. So what happened was, the guys that had originally helped me put that fuel system together and do some other things in the car, we absolutely no longer work with them. I don't even think they exist anymore. On a fuel cell, there's always some sort of vent system, but you want to make it long enough, put it high enough where that's not going to happen. Ours, let's say this is the fuel cell. Ours just had two 6-inch hoses off the top of it that would just basically put fumes right around the back end of the car, right around the exhaust, and if there's any kind of leak or motion where the fuel could potentially slosh out, it's just going to come out of those hoses and drip right on the exhaust where flames are coming out. So that's an awesome design. So backwards, before this run, we had just put a set of tires on. The guy that was working with me at that point also no longer works with me. He didn't last long after setting my car on fire. He overfilled the fuel system, and it had basically drained out a bunch of fuel all over the top of the fuel cell, all over the exhaust, all over like the back area where the fuel cell is. And then I went out to go. He didn't say anything or wasn't paying attention. So at this point, everything's cool, right? We're just drifting away, blowing a huge cloud. Currently, there is a pool of fuel all around the fuel cell, on the exhaust, around the back of the car. So yeah, at this point, the pool of fuel basically ignited. There's fumes all kind of stuck within that rear enclosure under the trunk, behind the rear bumper, and when the exhaust basically backfired, flames come out, it ignited the entire back end on fire. And because the vents were right there, I have no idea how the flame didn't necessarily travel back through the vents. I don't think at that point we had check valves. Now we have basically a check valve, so stuff can't come in, only stuff can come out. So at the end of this whole thing, because we did have a legitimate firewall, had the fire suppression, it was on fire for a decent amount of time, but really, believe it or not, all that needed to be done was rewiring and repainting everything firewall back, so everything with inside between the fenders and under the trunk all had to be repainted. There wasn't really any metal work that needed to be done because it wasn't on fire. I mean, metal usually survives fires like that, but the bumper was trash, so new rear bumper, paint, and wiring. And then the biggest one was a fix to the fuel system. And so at this point, like, I don't know how to design a fuel system. That's why I had hired professionals. I do now, but at that point, like, I'd just been getting into the game. Obviously, these guys weren't professionals. So I'm like, well, I can't trust anybody. I'm gonna take this into my own hands. So I started looking up like how NASCARs run their vent systems, sprint cars, other Formula Drift cars, kind of anything like that. And I ended up figuring out a cool system where it was basically the two hoses go into a Y, and then I get it way up above the fuel cell, basically come across that firewall, do a couple loops, and then end with like a little vent on it. And so now that's like venting way out into like the ambient air. Any of the fumes are going way out there. The other thing that's nice, if you do overfill, we had a fill basically on the side window, and it's gonna leak out of there before it comes out of the vent. So you're gonna know when you're overfilled instantly. So yeah, that was basically a fix, and it never happened again. Quick shout out, make sure the professionals you hire are actually professionals, not just saying they are. That was my mistake, because they weren't. If you guys liked it, let's run on the likes, and if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. See you guys soon.